quick restoration walkthrough on this Pioneer SA85002. As you can see, I mean, for a 60 watts amplifier, it's really well built. It has a separate power supply for each amplifier section, huge heat sinks, especially for a 60 watter. They're really huge, and precision attenuators, so on and so forth. Now, this one, it underwent full restoration, which means all transistors were replaced, diodes, semiconductors, and capacitors. So it is actually nearly brand new. Now, one thing that these amplifiers suffer from is noisy transistors. These amplifiers are actually riddled with noisy transistors, in particular 2SA725 and 2SA726. Moreover, there's another one problematic transistor in the amplifier sections. It's the 2SA798. It's different differential pair located over there. Now, we'll get to that a bit later. The first thing that I've done to this was I've cleaned the faceplate and the knobs, because they've had probably 47 years of dirt on them, and to do that I used this very mild scratch remover. This one is actually used for plastics, I'm informed, so it's really light, but abrasive enough to remove the dirt. You would want to be careful when cleaning the faceplate and the knobs, because those are actually anodized, and if you overdo it, you might end up removing the anodizing, and by time that that exposed part of the aluminum will oxidize and turn dark gray. Now, all capacitors, as I mentioned, were replaced. Film capacitors were put instead of electrolytics, where the audio path passes through, so to make sure, because these are actually very low leakage. So in fact the originals were actually low leakage, those orange ones. Those are in the signal paths. So I've replaced them with film capacitors, which are even better and more expensive as well. The main filtering cups were uprated from 10,000 micro to 15,000 to help a little bit more punch, and as were the diodes, the rectifier diodes for these. Anyway, they were going to be replaced, so why not upgrade them? Now, all switches like these, all of them, were actually disassembled into pieces and cleaned with metal polish and reassembled and soldered again. It is important that these are actually disassembled and cleaned, because many of these 70s amplifiers problems start with oxidized switches. You would end up in a situation where at times you would hear ground loops, because part of the switch is not making contact, or suddenly the amplifier starts only producing sound on the left or on the right, and all this problems. So it is extremely advisable to remove those switches, disassemble them into pieces, and clean them thoroughly and polish them again. Now, all transistors were replaced. Let's start with the preamp. The preamp is filled with those troublesome transistors, the 2SA 725, and those were replaced by KSA 992. I've went a step further, and where I've seen, differential pairs, I've meshed them. I don't think it was actually necessary on this part, but I've done that. When you go that extra mile to ensure everything as perfect as possible, close to perfect. The amplifier section, each of these amplifier again underwent full restoration with new equivalent transistors, and as I mentioned earlier, each of these amplifiers has one problematic transistor, which is the dual transistor, the differential pair. It's a 2SA 798. Those are notorious for creating DC offset issues, and at times even it's so severe that it would send the amp into protection mode, kicking the relay. At times you can hear it. This one had that problem as well. So those were replaced by fabricating two KSA 992 transistors thermally coupled together. With that heat shrink. The reason is because those two transistors have to track together thermally, because if they are not thermally coupled, they will drift at different temperature, and you end up with some elevated DC offset, not zero. So those have to be really, really thermally coupled. In fact, I've also put thermal grease inside the heat shrink to make sure that they thermally couple as best as possible. Another thing that these amplifiers are known for, and it's a problem for some, is the unobtainable power transistors. These are nicknamed the Batwing, and this package is not available anymore from no manufacturer. So you would have to modify the heat sinks and fit in modern equivalents. I fitted 2SA 1943 and 2SC 5200. In fact, as you can see, in order to fit these four transistors, I had to drill a hole here. You see, retained, and put in a screw retained with a nut, and soldered the cables to make sure that I wouldn't have issues, because the problem is these Pioneer used connectors for these as opposed to soldering, and at times that connector loses its springiness and tightness, and ends up actually creating havoc of problems for the amplifier. So I soldered these transistors, as you can see again. They're soldered. And to try to retain some amount of originality. I use the original cable thermal heat protector. So, to try to make it look as original as possible. This amplifier was riddled with havoc of problems, and to which some became more evident or after the restoration. In fact, this amplifier had problems with biasing issues. I couldn't get the unit to set to bias with the service manual. I think it's 30 millivolts across the emitter resistors. It would peak at around 20 millivolts for no reason, and after lots of troubleshooting, it ended up being one of these STV3H tracking diodes. And it's funny because I don't think I've ever came across a defective one or a shorted. In fact, the way these failed. In fact, this one from this section, because the other one was still okay. It was reading a forward voltage of around 1.2 volts where the other one was reading 1.6. I presume that one of the junctions inside went short. God knows why. Fortunately, there is a guy on the most famous buying website that we all know of, that still sells these. A guy from Germany. He still sells the STV3H diodes, and I don't know if these are actually newly manufactured reproduction or genuine new old stock ones. I really don't know, but they really do the job very well. So those are new as well. Lastly, what I wanted, now we're going to move on to the cosmetic part. I wanted this dial to light up because it's nice. It's the fact that it's recessed. I would expect. I don't know why Pioneer didn't try to make it lit from factory, but yeah, they didn't. So I have decided to make something myself, and I went again to that that very popular website and purchased this LSD strip. It's, as you can see, it's like a silicone. It's very, very flexible, and what I've done is you place it in a curved manner in order to light up the insides, as you can see in the photo here. The effect is extremely nice. In fact, especially in low light conditions, where you see it lets you actually see where the volume is positioned at. It's very nice. It's a very nice effect. And the same went for the same thing I did for the original incandescent light, because this one was burned. I actually put a resistor there in the power supply. By the way, I've created a separate power supply for this one, for the lights here, and for the LED. So it has its own separate power supply with the rectifier and so on and so forth. What I've done on this LED is I've put a slightly higher value resistor before the capacitor to try to mimic the effect of an incandescent light. In fact, it is. See, and even it's this soft, soft turn on, kind of, or ramp up. And when you turn it off, it's the same. It's attention to detail that makes a restoration stand, at times. I think that is just about it. Yeah, not much we can say more. I've also solder reflowed all of the solder joints on this one. In fact, you can see it's really, and cleaned the whole boards. It's very nice. At least you try to make solid connections, because these for after 47 years they all have tired solder joints. So yeah, it's extremely important to reflow all of the solder joints in any of these amplifiers. I also polished the rear as much the connections as much as I can. I mean, they're not perfect, but yeah, there's some slight corrosion, but they're still very nice, and they're in decent shape for the age. That's all, I think. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask, and I'll do my best to answer you as soon as possible. Have a great day, yeah?